Have you ever felt like your thoughts are richer and deeper than the words you have to express them? Have you ever left a conversation feeling frustrated that you couldn't express yourself the way you wanted to? I know how irritating this can be. See, I had the privilege of growing up in a family of very educated people. Both of my parents were lawyers in El Salvador before we immigrated to Canada, which meant growing up, all of our dinner table conversations had to do with philosophy, with politics, with morality. How do we organize ourselves as a society, with spirituality, all of these complex and nuanced topics. And naturally, being an introvert and also being the youngest of 3 siblings meant I would sit in on those conversations and just listen, soaking everything in, right? Adopting these new perspectives, learning. But as an adult, when the opportunities came to share these perspectives, to share what I had to say, to share my complex thoughts, I would freeze. I'd find myself stuck in my own head, excited about the conversation topic. I could feel my brain firing with all these disparate thoughts, ideas, connections, and nuances and examples, but I couldn't find the words to articulate them. I'd be in my head, nervous to express them because I didn't want to say the wrong thing, and before I knew it, the moment was gone. I know how frustrating this can be. It wasn't until I started writing every single day and creating content that I figured out exactly why I was having this problem in the first place, and that I noticed it slowly disappear from my life. So now I've been able to reverse engineer that process and distill that into 3 key lessons that I think anyone can take in order to think clearly and be able to articulate their thoughts with ever-increasing clarity. I hope this video serves you. Let's get into it. Why does this happen to us? Because it would be easy to chuck things up and blame the big social media monster. Short-form content has decreased our attention spans and our ability to follow long streams of thought, which means we, as a society, become pacified with entertainment, and our collective ability to think critically erodes. And these things are true, and I expand on that in depth in a video I made last week where I deep dive into how social media is changing the way we think and changing the way we organize ourselves as a society, because the medium impacts the message. But it's not the full picture. The reality is that our brains are extremely limited in their ability to translate our rich internal experiences into structured, one-dimensional sentences bounded by the limits of any given language. See, our languages actively influence how we perceive, interact with, and make sense of the world around us. This is a concept known as linguistic relativity. For example, in the English language, we only have one word for snow. It's snow. But an Inuit person might have anywhere from 15 to 50 different words to describe snow. Snow that is falling very heavily, snow that is icy and you shouldn't walk on, snow that your dog can eat, snow for building, a blizzard type snow. You see? Therefore, their language allows them to make more distinctions in that environment. Their language allows them to perceive more nuance in that environment, and it ultimately gives them more intelligence in that context. That's the power of language. See, language can constrain or enlarge the depth of our lived experience, which brings us to the importance of this video. Learning to think clearly and manipulate language skillfully not only allows you to communicate your ideas more effectively, not only makes people perceive you to be more competent and more intelligent, it also expands the depth and richness of your own internal experience. And there's been some really cool research in the field of psychology and in the field of neuroscience that prove that our ability to label our emotions improves our ability to regulate them, to manage them, which leads to better psychological outcomes. In other words, constraints in your language can lead to constraints in emotional coping and expression, which makes your experience of life more shallow or more diffuse. In short, language shapes reality. The first step should be very obvious to you. To think better, you must consume better. Our thoughts beliefs, and behavior is downstream from what we consume, because what we consume influences what we think and what we believe. If I surround myself with a group of friends that is constantly talking about drama, about celebrity gossip, and using all of this nonsense slang, I will inevitably begin to think about, care about, and speak about these topics in the same way they do. Right? If I want to learn about a topic, but I go about doing that through a short form piece of content, through only reading the #1 best-selling book on Amazon, or learning about it through any social media platform which inevitably only feeds you one side of the argument, I am bound to have a very narrow and shallow understanding of that topic. If I continue to watch videos of 20-something-year-olds telling me how much money they make and giving me a 1,000-foot view strategy on how I can do the same, I will inevitably misplace my energy on work that is inauthentic to me. I will inevitably begin to measure happiness on metrics that I did not set for myself. Do you see how this works? It's pretty straightforward. If you consume garbage, your outputs will be garbage. If all the language you are exposed to on a daily basis is not challenging or expanding your capacity to think, your thinking and speaking abilities will reflect that. So as corny and generic as this piece of advice might seem to you, pick up a book and read it. It does not have to be some complex physics or philosophy book. Naval has an awesome quote which says, "Read what you love until you love to read." And I think there's a lot of merit to that, because once you love to read, you can progressively challenge and expand both the breadth and the depth of what you're consuming. But at first, just pick up a damn book and read it. While you're walking, while you're cooking, while you're cleaning, while you're doing laundry, while you're commuting, listen to long format podcasts, listen to an audiobook, listen to a lecture. One of the challenges of the current state of media, right, short form content, YouTube, flashy headlines, is that they are robbing us of our ability to follow long streams of thought, right? To think critically, to understand the logical structure of arguments. And what reading does, what following long methodical speaking does, is that it trains that exact ability. Even our education systems fail at this. Most of the education systems, they teach us what to think about something, not how to think. So by deliberately exposing yourself to more reading, to more long format speaking, you are training this ability. And in doing so, you not only increase your ability to think for yourself, to come up with your own arguments, you also become less vulnerable to manipulation, right? This is one of the biggest reasons why great speakers can be so dangerous. Think about great speakers like Martin Luther King or Brene Brown, Obama, Jordan Peterson, even someone like Andrew Tate. I know it seems weird to put Martin Luther King and Andrew Tate in the same sentence, but think about these great speakers. Their power comes from their ability to articulate and put words to these rich and complex internal feelings that we have, that we know internally but couldn't quite put into words. Think about it this way. Our internal experiences are rich, they're colorful, they're multidimensional, they're like this beautiful Renaissance painting, right? But often, if we have constraints in our language, it's like we're trying to paint this with a box of 8 Crayolas. And then comes a great speaker, say someone like Jordan Peterson, and he has this box of 152 Crayolas. You're like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't even know that color existed. You connect with what they're saying because they're able to put words to the feelings that you have. The danger is that these speakers, what they're saying doesn't even have to be true or right. The danger is that simply by being able to articulate complex human emotions that we feel, that we've thought about, you will naturally gravitate towards them, right? Think about someone like Hitler. Think about someone like Andrew Tate. They're able to tap into these deep, repressed, dark corners of the human psyche, put words to them, and because people are like, wow, I'm seen, they will gravitate towards the message and then adopt other parts of that speaker's message with little critical thought. So this first step is simple. Your inputs dictate your outputs. So curate consciously. Read more, read better. Listen more, listen better. The second habit that will help you organize your mind and think clearly is having daily outputs. This could be writing a newsletter. It could be writing letters to a younger self, LinkedIn posts. It could be recording a video, recording podcasts. You could even just record yourself talking to a camera while you're driving for 10 minutes a day and not post it anywhere. I know this might seem unpractical to most people. You have a job, you have school, you have a family life, a social life, a love life, you have responsibilities, hobbies. Being an influencer might not be your dream. I understand that. But this video is about what I've done to improve my ability to think clearly and to speak articulately. And I would be lying if I told you that this didn't play a massive role. See, our brains have a limited capacity to store and process information. And because we live in a state of perpetual information overload, we are more stressed, anxious, and unable to think clearly than ever before. The volume and speed of information we are continuously exposed to exceeds our capacity to process it. But by having a medium by which to synthesize our thoughts and developing a habit of doing this daily, we can alleviate the cognitive load we carry on a daily basis and learn to think clearly. I kid you not, when I'm having a conversation with someone, when I'm trying to persuade someone, or when I'm teaching, if I have written about a topic before, or if I have even written about a related topic before, I will literally see an outline in my head. I will see bullet points. I will see headlines. It is the coolest feeling in the world. It's like having a bag of structured arguments, ideas, quotes that I can pull from at any given moment. It's a beautiful feeling that once you experience this, you'll cringe at the thought of how you sounded and thought about the world before, because it is truly life-changing to be able to think this clearly, to be able to see arguments in a structured fashion, because that's what language does. Language brings order to consciousness, right? And for those of you who feel resistance to writing every single day or speaking every day, and you're like, I don't want to become a content creator. First of all, recognize that we are all content creators. We all create content every single day. Content is just structured information. When you send emails or speak up in a work meeting, you are sharing your content. When you give advice to a friend who is struggling in their relationship or mourning the loss of a loved one, you are sharing your content. When you apply for a career opportunity, making a resume for a new job, speaking at a conference, or networking with someone new, you are sharing your content. If you organize the information inside your head and you share it, you are a content creator. You are sharing your content. The difference is that by developing the habit of generating outputs daily or weekly, be that in writing or be that in speaking, you are generating the habit of structuring your content. You are cutting the fat from all the information that is inside your head. You're developing the habit of literally organizing your mind. That's what creating outputs on a regular basis does. And again, you don't even have to post this online if being an influencer isn't your dream, right? I'd recommend you do, because you would be amazed at the opportunities and people that life will put in front of you by simply sharing your ideas and your values on the internet. But that's outside of the scope of this video. But by simply developing a habit of writing every single day, of speaking, or at the bare minimum, setting the intention to engage in conversations more mindfully and speak in a way that is clear, that is concise, setting that intention when you enter every single room, every meeting, every conversation. So we've talked about the two first things now: inputs and outputs. Curating your inputs and generating more outputs, creating more. Now let's get into the third and final step of this video. Our identity and the beliefs we hold about ourselves dictate the boundaries for our actions and our results. In other words, what we believe about ourselves and the world around us will literally create the results of our lives. I know this might seem like generic self-help advice or outside of the scope of this video, but I promise you this is the most important step and the most important realization to have, because you need to decide right here, right now, that this is important to you. That's it. If you decide that thinking clearly, that speaking well, that mastering language is something that you value, it is an identity that you are becoming every single day, then you will naturally begin to act in accordance to it. You have to decide right now that you value this and that you will implement this into your life if this matters to you. Right? It's not enough to watch a YouTube video. That's great. You just spent 10, 20 minutes with me. But you have to make a decision. You have to say to yourself, I choose to take responsibility over my mind. Recognizing the impact that inputs have on the way I think and I behave, I will choose to only engage with those ideas, influences, and behaviors and environments that align with this identity. I am someone who values depth, clarity, curiosity, and lifelong learning. I am someone who actively seeks out knowledge and seeks to express themselves with ever-increasing clarity. Does that sound foreign to you? Right? This kind of positive self-talk? I know a lot of people have probably bucketed affirmations and positive thinking, positive self-talk to be one of those generic pieces of advice that any life coach could give you, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. The truth is, we all have an internal dialogue. We all use self-talk. It's just most people use it unconsciously and extremely negatively. And there's great research, for decades of research actually, that has come out of the field of sports psychology and neuroscience that proves that when we speak to ourselves in a way that is encouraging, in a way that is motivating, in a way that is instructional and aligned with the identity that we are trying to embody, we are literally rewiring neural pathways in our brain that would make that corresponding behavior more readily accessible. It makes it more likely that you do that desired behavior when you speak to yourself in this way. Right? Affirmations are not bullshit. In case you didn't know, but that's a topic that I've made videos about in the past, and it's a video that I'll probably remake in the future. Identity. That's the third step, right? Decide right here, right now, that this is important to you, that you are someone who values the clarity of your mind, that you are someone who values the ability to think for themselves, to express themselves clearly. And every time that you go out there and you act in accordance with this new identity, right? Every time you read a book, every time you watch a enlightening documentary or a podcast or an audiobook, every behavior that you take is a piece of evidence that reinforces your belief in yourself. There's that great quote from Alex Hormozy which says, you don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror. You become confident by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are, right? So the self-talk is great, and you should speak to yourself in that way because that prompts the behavior. But when you do the behavior and you have that identity, you have that self-belief, that behavior gets registered as evidence that strengthens your identity. And you've created a positive feedback loop for yourself. You will be amazed at how well this serves you, both in opportunities with people, in communicating in your love life, in your family life, in your business life, but also your abilities to label and understand your own internal emotions and thus experience the world internally with much more depth, much more clarity, much more color. I hope this video has inspired you to master language, to appreciate language as much as I do, and I hope it's inspired you to go and take action. I hope this video served you. If it did and you found it useful, all I ask is that you would leave a comment so that it lets me know that you enjoyed it and the YouTube algorithm picks it up and pushes it to more people. And if you really enjoyed it and you're a fan of these types of videos, I'd ask that you subscribe. My name is Mikey, and I'll see you around next week. Peace.